Welcome back, dear viewers. And now we are joined over the phone by Dr. Atef, PhD in Heritage and Museum Studies. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
So, the unearthing of King Tut's tomb on November 4th, 1922 is considered one of the greatest finds in modern history. So, can you talk to us about the importance of this discovery and why did it grasp the world attention?
King Tutankhamun's tomb is considered to be the biggest discovery in the last century for sure.
Yes.
And it took them good 4 years until they found the tomb of King Tutankhamun in the Valley of the Kings, the tomb that was discovered by Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon. And I must have read the story of the discovery maybe 100 times, and every time I read about this discovery, I feel I'm with them in the tomb. Howard Carter went into the tomb and looked at it, and Lord Carnarvon asked him, "What can you see? What can you see?" He said that twice, and Howard Carter told him, "Beautiful things I can see, wonderful things I can see." Well, they were able to unearth 5,200 pieces that belongs to King Tutankhamun, and this was the only tomb that was found intact in the Valley of the Kings. We're talking about gold. We're talking about a golden mask that weighs 11 kilograms of solid gold. We're talking about a golden coffin that weighs 110 kilograms of solid gold. We're talking about necklaces. We're talking about jewelry. And they estimated the value of the collection, of the gold collection of King Tutankhamun by $5 billion. Well, they're not going to say it, of course, but that's the insurance of the pieces that was discovered of King Tutankhamun. So again, what makes this discovery important is that it was the only tomb that was found intact ever since they added him in the Valley of the Kings in 1350 BC. They found his tomb in 1922.
Yes. So, Dr. Amr, what does this discovery tell us about this period of ancient Egyptian history?
Well, this discovery tells us a lot about ancient Egyptian history. I mean, you cannot find in any country in the world a collection like this collection that has been discovered in the tomb of King Tutankhamun. You cannot find in any nation on earth a golden mask, as I always tell you. You cannot find those pieces. And by the way, if we are talking about the tomb of King Tutankhamun as a small tomb, not to be compared by other tombs that are in the Valley of the Kings, imagine how the collection that was found or that was there in the tomb of a king like Ramses II, for instance, which is much, much bigger. I'm talking about the size of the tomb of Ramses, much, much bigger than the size of the tomb of King Tutankhamun. Imagine how this collection would have been like. And imagine the total tombs of 64 or 65 tombs in the Valley of the Kings. Imagine all the gold collection. Well, they're saying that the ancient Egyptians mined around 40 tons of gold in the past to make the artifacts that was found in the tomb. So this was for sure a great civilization that lasted and that still stands among all the civilizations in the world, and no other civilization, as a matter of fact, can be compared with it up till today.
So, sir, can you tell us more about King Tutankhamun's life?
Well, King Tutankhamun, actually, as a matter of fact, he was the son of King Akhenaten. And King Akhenaten was, of course, he was the one who started the monotheism, the unifying of all the gods into only one God. The first one to start that was Akhenaten, with unifying the gods into the sun god Ra, according to the ancient Egyptian culture.
Yes.
Now, King Tutankhamun came to power at the age of 9, and the high priests could easily manipulate King Tutankhamun, or this what they thought. Now, people and the history books talks about King Tutankhamun as a child pharaoh, and they talk about the tomb as the big thing about But also, we should mention that King Tutankhamun did a great job reviving the religion or the cult of Amun-Ra that was demolished by Akhenaten. Because Akhenaten, as you know, moved the capital from Thebes, which is nowadays Luxor, he moved it to Tel Amarna. And he started a war with the high priests, and it was done. The drawback in Akhenaten's cult was that he personalized his religion. Well, he said, I am Ra, and Ra is me. So when Akhenaten passed away, when Akhenaten died, his cult was done. Now, King Tutankhamun came and revived the cult of Amun-Ra. So that's a big thing for the ancient Egyptian cult, you know, as far as I'm concerned, because if not King Tutankhamun, maybe the cult of Amun-Ra, God knows how it would have been done, I mean, with all the temples and this ancient Egyptian history. So that's one of the big things that King Tutankhamun has done and should be mentioned parallel to the glory of his tomb and the glory of the artifacts. King Tutankhamun ruled at the age of 9,
Yes.
he died at the age of 18. And we found, most probably, he was murdered. I mean, the recent studies are talking about King Tutankhamun, and most probably he was murdered. King Tutankhamun had lots of diseases, genetic diseases, because of the intermarriage that was common at the time. And we found a scar on his leg. So most probably he fell one way or another off his chariot, and that caused the scar in his leg that caused gangrene, that caused his death. And now they are saying that most probably the high priest's eye is the one who killed him, because they didn't want him to continue, and as he wanted to go back to the religion of Akhenaten towards the end. So he started to say no to the high priest, and then that caused the conflict, and that ended up with his death. King Tutankhamun also had problems with his middle ear, with his backbone, had problems walking around. That's why we found lots of walking sticks in the tomb in the Valley of the Kings, and we thought those are royal sticks, but it ended up to be sticks that were really used by King Tutankhamun, as he had problems. He had like a problem with his feet, like a flat foot disease, or like a problem, disease of his foot, and problems with his middle ear that caused him benefit problems. So he had physical issues because of this intermarriage. The word Tutankhamun means in the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic language, the living image of God Amun-Ra. So Tut is image, Ankh is living, and Amun is Amun-Ra. So we're talking Tutankhamun, meaning the living image of God Amun-Ra, according to the ancient Egyptian beliefs at that time, and again he dates back to 1350 BC. We found a lot of collections that's very impressive, and it used to cover the second floor of the Egyptian Museum of Antiquities in the Tahrir Square,
Yes.
Which is a heritage building, of course, and dates back to 1902. And of course, it used to cover the second floor. Now, lots of the pieces of King Tutankhamun's collection has been moved to the GEM, the Grand Egyptian Museum, but still, the jewelry room of the Egyptian Museum of Tahrir Square is full of golden artifacts and pieces of King Tutankhamun, so people still go and see the Tahrir Square Museum. The King Tutankhamun's collection will be moved eventually to the GEM, inshallah, when it's open as expected, maybe next February, as it's expected.
So, sir, can you tell us more about the British archaeologist Howard Carter, who discovered the tomb, and did he make any other discoveries in Egypt, or just the tomb of King Tutankhamun?
Well, the big thing that's known for Howard Carter is the tomb of
Yes.
King Tutankhamun, and Howard Carter was the one who, the excavation of King Tutankhamun took him 4 years on the road. Well, Howard Carter knew that the tomb was there somewhere in the Valley of the Kings and did not know exactly the place. And
Yes.
that's why he kept digging haphazardly for 4 years on the road. Ended up with this big discovery. He was financed by Lord Carnarvon, and Lord Carnarvon was a British lord, and he was the one who was paying for all the digs and all the excavations. Now, the thing is, Lord Carnarvon gave Howard Carter a chance. 1922 was his last chance, and Lord Carnarvon told him that if the tomb was not to be discovered in 1922, he will cut all the finances of the excavations and the digs. And lucky both of them, the tomb was discovered. Howard Carter had a house up the hill by the Valley of the Kings. And up to now, when we go and visit the Valley of the Kings, we can still see the house of Howard Carter. And it's going to be a museum. And people will be able to go and see the house of Howard Carter and see his furniture and how he lived, which is very interesting, and a typical house of an that dates back to 1922. Howard Carter was lucky with his discovery, with his excavations, and was lucky that he was able to find the tomb of King Tutankhamun. And as we always say, thanks to the debris of the excavations of the tomb of Ramses, because this debris covered completely the entrance of the tomb of King Tut, and that's why it was not interrupted by the robbers of the tombs. And as I told you before, that if this tomb is considered to be a small one in the Valley of the Kings, imagine how the other collections or the other tombs would have been like, not only in the Valley of the Kings, but also in the Valley of the Queens, in the Valley of the Nobles, and in all the tombs of Egypt. There were lots of artifacts, and there were lots of treasures, and the museums all over the world is full of Egyptian artifacts. If you look at the British Museum, for instance, the second floor of the British Museum in London has lots of Egyptian artifacts. If you talk about the Louvre in France, in Paris, the Louvre has a huge collection of Egyptian artifacts. If you talk about the Metropolitan, it has lots of collection of the Egyptian artifacts. If you talk about the Turin Museum, if you talk about the Berlin Museum in Germany, in the museum, there is also the bust of Nefertiti there in the Berlin Museum in Germany. So the Egyptian artifacts is all over the world, and it's all over the museums, wide and straight. And people who come to Egypt, they say, we've been there, we have seen the Egyptian artifacts, which doesn't need a proof. It's Egyptian. It has the hieroglyphic inscriptions and hieroglyphic texts and papyrus paintings all over the different museums. So Egyptian civilization is all over Egypt. It's all over the world in different museums. That's when we talk about museums. If we talk about obelisks, Italy, Rome, for instance, has the biggest collection worldwide with Egyptian obelisks. If you talk about the Conqueror's Fair in Paris, it has the famous obelisk, the Egyptian obelisk that was erected and built by King Ramses II. So it's all over the world, and you travel anywhere, and you feel that Egypt is there, and you feel that there is a display of Egyptian artifacts. A friend of mine just came from Paris recently, and maybe that's out of the topic, but I think it's interesting if we're talking about Egypt. He went to Paris, and he just came back, and he told me that you go there and you feel that you're in Egypt. The movies talks about Egypt. The museums talks about Egypt. All the galleries talks about Egyptian art. All as I told you, the movie house talks about Egyptian films and movies. And so Egypt is there all over the world, and that's because of such a great civilization that lasted for more than 5,000 years.
Yes, finally, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Amr Atef, PhD in Heritage and Museum Studies. Thank you, sir, for being with us. And by that, dear viewers, we come to the end of today's edition of Cairo Local Time. Thank you for watching.